Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be discussing Radeon Prorender and its Uber shader. We're going to be taking a quick look around the Uber shader and working out how we do things with it, because it does differ from cycles quite a lot in the way you set up your nodes. So I'm just going to start here by adding cube and a ground plane for us to look at. Click over to rendered, and then I'm going to come up here, and the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go and open up an HDR and enable background override, and override it with a nice black color there. So that's just giving us some HDR lighting to start off with, and so I'm gonna now flick over into our shading view and flick back to rendered, and say we can see with our default material we've got the cycles principled shader set up. So I'm just gonna get rid of that, and I'm gonna add in our Prorenders Uber shader. So at first notice, nothing seems to have changed much. Let's go for a round cube to test this out. Now, one of the great things about this renderer is what in cycles would be lots of bolt-on shaders to your normal shader workflow, you can get straight out. So if we start, really when we start out with our Uber, we want nothing turned on. So then we go here, and if we say we want a mirror surface, then we just turn on reflection, we turn off our roughness, and we set our metalness to 1, and then we have pretty instantly we have a metallic looking shader. So then if we decide we don't want that and we want a glass shader instead, we just turn on refraction, and then we can then set our index of refraction, and then we have here our glass. Then if we want to do an emission, we can add in, just going to add in a bit more geometry around here so that we can see our shaders working a bit better. So instead of going through a full PBR workflow, you can just still use a PBR, but you can pick the bits of it you want. If you want a subsurface scattering, then you just hit the subsurface node. So if you go there, we can get some combining diffuse and a subsurface node, we can get some subsurface scattering going on our test block here really quickly. Again, for a normal map, it would be the same as with cycles, but you would just choose normal, and if you would like to add a transparency map, and all of these work with alphas here that we can just plug in textures. So we could just really quickly build up a shader and say we didn't like the diffuse and we wanted this to be metallic looking one, or a glassy looking shader, we can just turn them on. Of course, there are some shaders that you can't mix within this Uber shader. For instance, you can't really mix a diffuse and a reflection. So what you'd want to do instead is add a diffuse and a coating. And a coating is a really good one. It hasn't really picked up yet in the Blender workflow, but it's there in a lot of other 3D programs, and it's sort of like a reflection app, but just for a diffuse channel, and it applies it all over like it was a coating. Really good for car paints, and yeah, it's good for metallic paints and things like that. So that's just a quick introduction to the Uber shader and how to navigate around it, and I hope that that was really helpful for anyone wanting to start out with ProRender. Thank you for watching.